At moneyunshackled.com, we do not just regurgitate the same tired groupthink that you hear from gurus, your friends, your family, and your colleagues, but tell you how it is based off our own experiences and what we've actually done. Today, we call bull-poo on the myth that debt is evil, and instead argue that it can be key to retiring young.
It is commonly accepted as fact that debt is bad and should be avoided. This is true in the case of the financially illiterate. Debt will burn through their lives like wildfire and leave them broke or worse.
But for students of this channel and those genuinely interested in financial freedom, investing, business, and good money management, debt is a blessing in disguise. You just need to know how to use it, understand debt's danger, and don't bite off more than you can chew. Also note that the debt advice that you see on TV, in newspapers and in magazines is always aimed at the lowest common denominator audience in order to protect their own backs partially, and that the advice always assumes that the person reading or viewing is rubbish with money management.
Without debt, we ourselves would not be in touching distance of financial freedom, and using other people's money has been a major part to leverage our efforts and achieving 3 years what otherwise could have taken decades.
In this episode, we're going to tell you how to use small amounts or even large amounts of debt sensibly in order to pursue a better life in pursuit of financial freedom. What types of debt are good and what types are bad, and from our experience the hidden dangers rarely mentioned that can keep you trapped, including how mortgages can actually stop you from retiring when you want to. Let's check it out.
Welcome to moneyunshackled.com, the investment and finance channel that sets you and your finances free. I'm Andy, this is Ben, and if you like what we say, hit the like button and click subscribe.
And be sure to check out the offers page on moneyunshackled.com, where we are proud to bring you cashback offers, including this one from Assets Capital, a top-rated peer-to-peer lending platform. You get £50 cash bonus when you open a new account and invest £1,000 for a year. Now let's get into the video. Why debt is key to fast financial freedom. If you can buy investments and assets with other people's money and have those assets pay you an income greater than the interest on the debt, then you are winning at life. If you can harness the power of debt to leverage good, cash-flowing investments, you can build a portfolio of rental properties and possibly high dividend funds far faster than you could by sensibly setting aside small amounts every month from your slave wage.
If you're thinking that it's madness to invest in the stock market if you're in debt, then think again. Many people that have a mortgage also invest in the stock market, which is essentially borrowing money on your house to invest in the stock market, which otherwise could have been spent to pay down your mortgage.
The low interest age. The most common negative comments that we get about our love of good debt is that the last decade of low interest rates is a temporary thing that will soon return to the norm.
We believe that 10 years of low interest rates and economic reforms around the world now make low interest rates a new norm. Indeed, rather than raising rates, central banks in the EU and the US are lowering interest rates still further in 2019, with further reductions expected in 2020.
Low interest rates are now too baked into the economy to simply raise rates, except over a very long term. The majority of households in the US and the UK are now so dependent on low interest rates to pay their mortgages that they could not survive a significant increase, as are most businesses, and governments know this. Therefore, they are now very unlikely to raise rates back to historic levels, as the economy simply couldn't cope. But play it safe and always have a plan B of how you could pay back that debt if it started to creep upwards. Perhaps by selling investments or from a job or other income source.
Mortgages. The most obvious type of debt used in investing is mortgages and buy-to-let property, which demonstrates good debt theory nicely. Normal people could not afford to buy a rental property without a mortgage, but when a bank is willing to give you the money for a small interest rate, it makes sense. It means you can buy the property now and be making rental profits for many years sooner than you could by saving diligently until you have over £100,000 to buy a cheap house.
Change your outlook. Most people would agree that mortgages are necessary to buy property and see them as somehow more acceptable than other forms of debt. But debt is debt, with the only real differences being the interest rate and the term. It's how you use it, so why not look at other ways you can borrow money to invest as long as it results in profits? Remember, this is not for the financially illiterate and does not constitute advice.
Other debt options we've used. Equity release. As homeowners, we have the power to borrow money against our homes, essentially increasing the size of our mortgages to extract money. Reckless, our critics would say, but we are just telling you what we would do.
I have done this myself twice to extract £50,000 of growth from my house as cash into my bank account at an extra cost of less than £100 a month in additional interest. I used this as deposits to buy 2 buy-to-let properties, each making £350 a month profit after all expenses and taxes, £700 of income each month, financed entirely by debt.
You should not do this if you are bad with money or don't understand how debt can destroy you if not properly maintained, but it's illustrative of what you can do with debt.
Money transfer credit cards. Another way that we've utilised debt is using a form of credit card called a money transfer credit card. For a small fee of around £400, I have twice borrowed on zero interest credit card sums of £10,000, repayable over 2 to 3 years. These are not like normal credit cards. Essentially, you are transferring the entire balance of that credit card into your current account. It is essentially a zero interest 3-year loan. Impatient for freedom, I found that debt is really helpful to make the final leap towards saving a full deposit on my first couple of rental property purchases, rather than waiting many extra months. It allowed me to start earning a return on investment then instead of later, which I used to pay back the credit card.
If you think it's going to be difficult to get hold of one of these cards, then think again. Every single month I receive a letter from Barclaycard begging me to take out one of these offers. The point we're trying to make is that these are zero interest. Smart debt used to add to wealth, not spend on expenses, so it does not burn you as long as there is a sensible plan in place to meet your monthly repayments, such as from a job or a source of passive income.
Should you borrow to buy shares? We wouldn't use debt to invest in shares purely for capital growth, as the value of shares can go down as well as up. There is an argument that it would be okay to invest in a diversified, high dividend or income portfolio, as cash flow is more reliable and can be calculated as higher than the cost of the debt interest.
You need a strategy for paying back the debt in the interest-free time horizon that doesn't involve the same money that you just sank into the stock market. That could temporarily halve in price during a recession, wiping out your repayment plans.
Think of it this way, if you'd taken out £10,000 of debt and put it into the stock market, meaning in 3 years' time to withdraw it from the stock market and pay back the debt, keeping your profits, what if the stock market halved in value? This capital is now only worth £5,000. You can't pay off the debt with it, but the dividends you'd be making from it might well be higher than the interest from the debt, and so it makes sense if you were to leave that now £5,000 for another 50 years in the stock market to grow. What is important is that you need another source of income to come in and pay off that £10,000 at the end of the 3 years. Debt to avoid. As we said earlier, debt is all the same except for the interest rate and the term. When the interest rate is low and the term long, we are happy to consider utilising a debt product to fast track our financial freedom goals. But when the interest rate is high and or the term short, it is a bad idea.
Types of debt you should avoid like the plague are payday loans, credit cards that charge interest, overdrafts that charge interest, unsecured high interest loans.
It's a trap! We can't repel firepower of that magnitude!
You know that bad debt can trap you in a life of living paycheck to paycheck. But what about good debt? We have found that good debt, despite its benefits, can have a similarly restrictive effect as reliance on a slave wage on your ability to leave a career, at least in the short term.
The mortgage on my house was favourable to my life goals of financial freedom as long as I could control the interest rate and keep it locked in at a low level. But when your fixed term ends, the bank puts on its boxing gloves and lays into you with a damaging standard variable rate. So you need to be able to switch the product and provider. Anyone like us that's planning to retire early from the workplace should note that the banks require employee pay slips from the last 3 months when you switch your mortgage product and reset your rate, or failing that, 2 years worth of tax returns from your business.
Therefore, if you're planning to quit employment in order to start a business, you will find yourself in a 2-year window where you'll massively struggle to find a mortgage provider who will touch you, as you have neither of these required types of paperwork. A huge hindrance to those aspiring for a better life, and something you'll need to navigate around when the time comes.
This mortgage trap has been rightly criticised in the media because the banks are essentially saying that you cannot afford a cheaper mortgage than the one you are already paying. It's ridiculous. In this way, even good debt can be constricting and it can prevent you from taking the necessary risks to grow your wealth.
Question of the day: would you ever borrow to invest? No? What if it meant that you could retire 10 years earlier? Let us know if we're right or wrong on this in the comments below.
Thanks for watching! On this channel we talk a lot about personal finance, investing and all things money. And if you want to see more great content, please click the subscribe button below.
Visit moneyunshackled.com. See you next time.